GM, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is Friday, the 21st of February. Firstly, apologies, there's been no stream for the last few days. I've had some family visiting me out here in Portugal, but I'm raring to go, ready to get back into the thick of it and bring you my latest thoughts on the crypto market. And as we can see today, we can see a fairly green market across the board. Bitcoin is starting to push up to 98, just above 98,500 currently, obviously right at the top of the recent range. If we can push through here, I'm expecting we probably go up to 100k, maybe as high as 102,500. I'm not expecting any further closes below about 96.4. That's yesterday's low. If we do close below that level, then we will have an opportunity to come down to the lower end of the range again, probably down to 92, maybe even lower. So really, it's going to be very important how price action responds over the next few days. Obviously, earlier on in this week, it was back here on Tuesday that we actually came and we tested our 100-day moving average. I've been waiting for that test. Obviously, that's the second test from the first one being at the start of the month. And we actually tested our yearly open as well. If we just actually look at where Bitcoin opened for the year, it opened precisely at 93,500, around that area. And that's exactly where we came down to. It was also the 786 Fibonacci. So that was an area that I bought some more Bitcoin, also put in a low leverage long position, looking to catch the next phase of upside in the market. And another big development we've had over the last few days, it's still waiting to actually be confirmed, but I talked about this on the last video. If you look down here, this is our RSI, and you can see we are starting to look as if we will get a RSI breakout on the weekly. The last time we got a weekly RSI breakout was back here, early September, and we can see that from the moment that Bitcoin actually saw that weekly RSI breakout, if we actually sort of mark that on the chart, we can see where price action went from here. It's actually there. You can see we never actually went back below prices from that week, not even below that week's high. We did retest that week's high, but that was as low as we got, and Bitcoin was off to the races from that point. And obviously, if we see something similar play out this week, then potentially we're going to be looking at another decent leg higher in Bitcoin. Obviously, from that close from that week, if we just actually take a look at that gain, we can see from sort of low to eventual high back in January time, you can see it was basically an 85% move. So look, I mean, if if this is all very dubious speculation here, but if Bitcoin, say, closes around these levels and puts on a similar move, then I'm going to have to sort of grow the chart a bit. 85%. We are literally looking at us getting up to around about 183,000. So look, I'm not saying we're going to get that high, but certainly I'm expecting a major upside move for Bitcoin if this does get confirmed by the end of Sunday. And probably there will be some sort of pullback. Obviously expect pullbacks along the way. This was fairly sort of, steady, sort of grinding through the summer range before eventually making the breakout. It actually took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks for Bitcoin to then make new all-time highs. I'm not expecting it to take as long this time. Obviously, Bitcoin back here was, sort of pre-breakout of that summer consolidation, obviously still below previous cycle all-time highs for the vast majority of this consolidation. Now we are in a different phase. This consolidation looks like it's going to end up being significantly shorter, potentially by a factor of 3. So maybe this grind up to the all-time highs might only take 2 to 3 weeks, possibly up to 1 month. And then, of course, we will probably see 1, 2, 3, 4 give it, sort of 4 to 8 weeks of expansion when that top does get taken out. So, look, potentially we could be looking at something like this breakout sort of coming around mid-March, I would say. And then if we extend another sort of 4 weeks on from that, then we could be looking at sort of a top coming in, I would say, sort of early April to early May for Bitcoin. Maybe it moves a bit faster because, like I say, we are already above previous cycle all-time highs. But I think March and April are looking fairly good for Bitcoin, providing we can hold on to these levels. And really, on the downside, I don't really want to see Bitcoin going below the low from yesterday. That is coming in at 96.4 on the chart here. So I'm thinking we probably push up there. If we just go back to the other chart, we can see that range again that I'm expecting us to go into is going to be between 94,500 on the downside to remain bullish, and a move up to around about 102.5. I think that's where we might get rejected. So if I had to do a path on the current trajectory of Bitcoin over the next month, it would look something like this. Let's throw that on now so we can get the latest expectations. So I'd be looking for potentially sort of a push up to this level over the next few days, some kind of pullback. We might not get that low, but I think, sort of worst case scenario, sort of bear moon going into early March. Maybe we see some move down before potentially sort of retesting the highs and making our way higher into the end of March and new all-time highs March, April. So that's what I'm currently looking at on Bitcoin. That is also supported by liquidity as well. We've got on our liquidation heat map a lot of shorts here that will get liquidated on a move to 100,000. So in the short term, that definitely looks on the cards. We're already starting to squeeze into these prices and starting to eat through some of these liquidations here. So obviously that's going to be more fuel to the upside. That's why I'm saying we could potentially get up to around about 102 and then look to come down and flush out any late longs before eventually resolving higher. And if we actually just look at, where is it? It's here. If we actually look at some of the fundamental factors that have actually influenced my own shift on Bitcoin over the last few days, I'm just going to go through those with you because there's a post here that I've shared which actually captures those really well. So we're just going to have to wait for X to load up. And I'll actually run through what I'm seeing sort of fundamentally wise that I think can actually sort of push this next leg in Bitcoin and crypto from more of a, sort of narrative perspective. So 5 reasons to be bullish on crypto in H1, first half of 2025, and why I've allocated more capital. We can see the top reason is the Texas Bitcoin reserve. So Texas are pushing forward in terms of getting a Bitcoin reserve approved. They're having hearings right now on getting approval for this. And remember, obviously, Texas is a state. They can move a lot faster than federal government can. But what's really interesting about this is that Texas is actually, if you measured Texas's GDP globally, they would actually be number 8 in the world. So that is pretty huge in terms of, economy. This is ahead of the likes of Canada and Russia. So this is quite a big deal. And they're going to be the first of many, many US states, I expect, over the next few months that will actually adopt a Bitcoin reserve. So that news is starting to come out, and I believe it's starting to affect the Bitcoin price. Obviously, we've had news of the UAE purchasing Bitcoin. We're starting to get more disclosures from more sovereign countries purchasing Bitcoin. So this whole sort of global game theory, this whole, global race to actually adopt Bitcoin seems to be on the cards. And obviously, we're seeing a real push coming from the US. Obviously, the US is very influential to other countries, especially in the West, that I'm sure will look to follow suit should the US get approval for holding Bitcoin, and obviously starting with the states such as Texas. So that's a huge thing. We've also got the FTX repayments that I believe are about to start. So some of this money, I'm sure, will find its way back into crypto. Certainly, if people are getting repayments in US dollars or stable coins, I'm sure they will want to be getting allocations back into crypto. And obviously, it's a pretty good time to enter. We're at the start of what should be the final year of the bull run, coming off a massive pullback and a real negative shift in sentiment. So things can turn around very quickly. Obviously, the US dollar weakness. So it looks like the US dollar has formed a local top. Binance US have reopened US dollar deposits in withdrawals, so liquidity on ramp for the world's largest economy, the USA, being able to get back into crypto, and not just any crypto. Obviously, currently they can access ETFs there, but this is more for altcoins as well. They'll be able to go into alts. So I think alts could catch a bid off some of this. And also the Doge dividend. Right now, nothing's confirmed. It's just speculation. But the US Doge is reported to be able to save approximately 2 trillion. That's its target, 2 trillion worth of costs, government costs. And they are talking about 20% of that going back to the taxpayer. That would be approximately 400 billion, and divided by taxpaying Americans, I believe it works out around about $5,000 per taxpayer. So that would be absolutely massive, a massive liquidity injection if it were to happen at some point this year. I'm not saying this happens in the first half of next year, but when that does come through, I'm sure that will be an event where those checks get front run, and we will see some crazy gains in the crypto space. So things are looking a lot better. Obviously, the last couple of videos, I was a bit more cautious. I was looking at things like inflation running high. I was saying, look, that's probably going to mean there's going to be no quantitative easing from the Fed at all this year. But the Fed minutes actually did come out yesterday. And within those minutes, the Fed have talked about quantitative tightening ending at some point this year, likely in the middle of this year. So things are looking fairly good. I think when, obviously quantitative tightening ends, that is a positive rate of change in US liquidity. And obviously global liquidity is still looking fairly strong. We've got the Chinese that are just printing and printing and printing away. If we actually look at, I think it might be CNM2 for the sort of China money supply. But if we actually look at the Chinese money supply, we can see it's pretty much up only over the last year, and doesn't seem to be showing any sign of slowing down. So obviously, whilst global liquidity, I think we might have sort of global M2 on here as well. Let's just see if we can find it. I mean, we've got global money, maybe. No, the only thing we seem to have is the US money supply here, but we can even see that United States money supply is starting to tick up as well. And in terms of indicators, let me put on, because I do actually want to show it because it is relevant. We've got it's on here as global liquidity index. So if we add this, we can actually see that global liquidity has been coming down, and that's really what we're looking for to start to turn up. But if we actually add on China, so if we add on all of the uh, liquidity onto this indicator, we can see that we are actually not coming down so much. We are actually starting to tick up. So if we just overlay that on the Bitcoin chart, we can see that actually we are ticking up when it comes to the global liquidity. We were actually going up over the summer, and we can see that from there, Bitcoin, as a result of this liquidity, was managed to hold its range and then did start to take off as global liquidity was coming down. Global liquidity starting to tick up again. And like I say in the past, when we've seen global liquidity tick up, we've then seen crypto prices follow and Bitcoin follow. So I am expecting the liquidity situation to start to have some positive impact soon on crypto. And obviously, it's all about liquidity. It's all about, is there the money out there that is actually going to move into crypto? I believe this year there is, and it will start to happen over the next few days and weeks. So let's just see where prices go from here. But like I say, this is my most likely path right now. I'm expecting a further push up on Bitcoin before potentially coming down, retesting around about sort of 96,500, and then starting to mark up higher going into March. And yeah, we could. I think things are starting to turn around. Everything I'm looking at, everything I'm following and tracking here, from both a technical perspective and a fundamental perspective, is starting to open up the door for higher prices very, very soon. So let's just check in very, very quickly on Ethereum. We can see Ethereum still within its range, following its capitulation event. The positive thing about Ethereum here is it hasn't broken down to these lower levels yet. So potentially, the path I've got on here might still happen, but really we would need to see another fall in Bitcoin for Ethereum to make another leg down lower towards 2,000. If Bitcoin pops up above 100,000 again, it's hard to see Ethereum not coming in and testing this trend line once again. Probably it gets rejected on the initial attempt from this 200 MA, 200 day MA, and this trend line if it actually runs up over the next few days. So I am thinking that Ethereum remains or continues to be weak until it gets above this key resistance here. Obviously breaking above the 200 day moving average, down sloping trend line, and the 3,000 sort of support level, which was holding the previous range. Once we start to trade up here, then things will be looking a lot better for Ethereum. And upon a successful retest of sort of 2,900, 3,000, I think that could be a trade up towards all-time highs again on Ethereum. So all hope is not lost, but it's definitely one of the weaker assets, one of those assets that I'm not currently positioned long on in any sort of leverage trades. Solana as well. Solana, obviously, it's been well reported about the unlocks coming out at the start of March. I still do think there's potential for Solana to roll over going into early March. So we've actually seen this come down a little bit sooner than I expected, down into the 160 level. Do we potentially come a little bit lower on a further push lower going into the unlocks in early March? Obviously, these were FTX's supply of Solana, which actually got then sold and locked up. So these got sold to, I believe it was Galaxy Digital and also Pantera Capital. So they've got, like I say, around, I think it's about 2 billion worth of Solana to be unlocked, that will be unlocked to them from FTX on the 1st of March. So that's going to be a major, major event. But obviously, the market has known about this, and that's why we've seen Solana trend down. That's why we've seen Solana show weakness really from the start of the year. And, smart money is starting to get out. If you're selling down here, you're probably a little bit too late. So yeah, I do think this at some point early next month looks to run the other way, starts to push higher again. And obviously this would be fueled by Bitcoin starting to turn around and getting back above 100,000. It's hard to see Solana going to much lower levels. I've got my lowest level here around about 120 if things really sort of do start to break down. But I think that would take Bitcoin probably rolling over into the 80s for this to happen on Solana. So more likely targets would be a retest of the high 150s or potentially down towards 140 before Solana puts a bounce in over the next month, coinciding with that unlock passing. I think, a lot of the time the market, the expectation of these big events is actually worse than the actual event themselves. And certainly, Pantera, Galaxy, I mean, these guys are very, very smart trading firms. They're probably going to want to exit for the best price. Dan Morehead, the founder and chief at Pantera, and Mike Novogratz, who's the CEO of Galaxy Digital, they actually get on well. They're actually good friends. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have some sort of gentlemanly agreement not to just dump all of their Solana right away, and probably both adopt some sort of phased approach, looking to get out of that Solana closer to the previous all-time high, coming in maybe around about sort of 240 to 260, 270. I'd expect there to probably be more selling pressure there from these guys as opposed to just dumping at current prices. So yeah, I am expecting Solana probably after that event can move higher and start to recover. And just Pepe as well. Pepe has really, really struggled, but it seems to be showing some signs of bottoming out here on this ascending trend line. Of course, we do have levels. Let's just move this down. We do have levels to the downside should Pepe continue to roll over, but I am thinking this is probably exhausted and ready for some sort of bounce, and then it will be a question of can that bounce hold? Certainly, if Bitcoin shows some bullish signs over the next few weeks, gets back above 100k, potentially Pepe could start to mark up really, really quickly, and could even see a decent multiple coming back to around this 17.16 level. I think that is definitely a personal target on Pepe over the next few months if the markets do start to go bullish again. So, plenty of upside to be had if this thing does turn around. Very quickly then, just going to finish off with the DXY here. So the dollar looking to have formed a local high, coming back within the trading range from the last couple of years, which is really good to see. So confirming this is a deviation. What I now expect to see is the dollar to hold 107.3 as resistance and probably come down lower over the next few weeks and months, which would be obviously great for risk on and great for our assets. And stock markets hanging out around all-time highs, looking really, really strong here for the S&P. And also we've got the NASDAQ, very similar here, looking strong, consolidation at all-time highs, likely before a pop higher over the next few days and weeks. So I'm going to leave it there. Obviously, thank you very much for watching. Like I say, in the short term, Bitcoin is bullish as long as it is holding above sort of 96 to 96,500, then I'm expecting further continuation. Like I said, liquidations are all the way up to 100k, so it wouldn't surprise me if we pop up to 100k over the next day or two. And from there we look to maybe run up to around about 102 before some sort of pullback. But I am expecting the local low at least, to now be in for Bitcoin, and for that to be defended over the next couple of weeks, and probably we will see a markup to higher prices over the next couple of months. The bull run doesn't look to be over just yet, so I do still believe there are higher prices to come over the next few weeks. And if you've survived the last month, especially if you've been in altcoins, then you definitely deserve to see a bit of green now, because it has been really, really tough and difficult. And I know, I've had a lot of calls with a lot of friends that have invested in the space that have really, really struggled mentally. Even myself, I struggled, I was struggling mentally right at the start of this month, seeing, what this wick sort of did on some of the altcoins that I'm holding, especially Ethereum has been a painful one for me. But there's signs of things starting to turn around, and in crypto, things can turn around very, very quickly. So I do think dips are for buying again over the next couple of weeks. And like I say, I'd be very surprised if, come the end of March, going into April, Bitcoin is not trading well above 100,000, potentially back up at new all-time highs. So I'm going to leave it there. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you all on the next one. GM, 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 GM.